Now we are moving on to our final chat of the day, and I say chat because it is a very intimate fireside chat. I'm going to be joined by Chief Wizard at Builder AI in just a moment. Before we get on to that conversation, I do just want to take a moment to remind you that Happy Hour will be happening in 20 minutes in the North Village, so it's just literally out there. You can't miss it. It's just the bar outside on this floor. So do come and join us. It's there to network and get to know, well, everyone who's been here at 4 years from now. And if you are like that team taking photos, make sure you share the love online. Hashtag 4YFN25. Yes, I got that the right way round. Definitely messed that up earlier. All right. Well, I think, without further ado, we are here to talk about, well, the session title, From Cloud to No Code, a billion-dollar entrepreneurial journey. So please join me in welcoming on stage. It is the Chief Wizard at Builder AI, Sachin Dev Duggal. Oh, hello, hello. I'm going to hop you over this side if that's all right, Sachin. Great. How are you?
It's good. It's very nice to be in Barcelona.
Yes. I know you're all over the place, so I'm so glad that we've managed to get you to sit down with us for 20 minutes and talk us through your amazing journey. So I guess we'll start in a very traditional way. Would you mind introducing yourself and what it is that you do at Builder.ai?
Yes, so I'm the founder and chief wizard at Builder.ai. You know, we started the company with a really simple mission that we wanted the world to be able to create software without having to become technical. And you know, a long story short, what we realized is majority of the world, if I said Java, they think it's a programming language. Sorry, they think it's a coffee bean at Starbucks, not a programming language. And yet 100% of the tool set that exists today for entrepreneurs, business lines, business owners to be able to be AI or software native requires them to be experts, right? And so you have a mismatch of where the demand's coming from. And so we said, what if, you know, we could just let you build software by talking or by answering questions? And then I think the second thing we realized really quickly is, you know, most people think software is quite unique. Their application is quite unique. But when you break it down, a lot of software is very similar. It's a little like Lego.
Okay.
2,600 Lego pieces make up the hundreds of millions of Lego pieces shipped every year. But there's only 2,600 unique pieces, and software is very similar.
Okay, you make it sound so easy. I'm not believing that for a moment, because actually, you know, one of the things we're here to talk about is your journey from the trials and tribulations to leveraging that success. So I guess we'll start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in a condensed form, and we'll explore from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, well, I started my first business building PCs in school when I was 14 years old. That was a really important learning lesson. And then I actually went on to be an intern at Deutsche Bank. I was there for about 5 years, programming robots. Went to school at Imperial side by side. Graduated from college, started a cloud computing company in 2004, streaming Windows in a browser. That was a lot of work because it was so ahead of the curve. And then, you know, had a photo sharing startup, and then ultimately started Builder because being an engineer, I got rogered by a developer in San Francisco. And I was like, in the mecca of the tech world, and you can't get a piece of software built. And I was hearing the same stories from a lot of my friends who were trying to launch a technology business or businesses that were trying to build software, and everyone was having the same problem. Really expensive, really late, doesn't really work. And that's really what got the story started. Okay,
so you mentioned there about timing, being too late or too early to the curve, not being able to get things done. How important then do you think timing is when it comes to building a successful company?
Look, I think it's a really important question. You can never time timing.
Yeah.
But I think what you can do is you can, you know, you've got to get the right window of opportunity. So I give you my own example. In the cloud, we were too early. Okay. So the question was, did we have enough staying power till the cloud became the cloud? And I think we were too early, so we didn't have enough staying power to really create inflection. And timing is not only about market timing, it's also about infrastructure timing or ecosystem timing, right? You know, when we started at that point, Niveo, we had to build everything. Infrastructure, network, so on and so forth. There wasn't just the cloud at that point that you could use and build on top of AWS or Azure. Mm-hmm. In photo sharing, we were too late.
Interesting.
So right problem, right solution, but the distribution had already kicked off. Yeah. And it was us versus Google, because Google had photos. And they'd bought one of our competitors called Bump. But then it was interesting in Builder, I think we got the timing a little early, but we had staying power to build the right solution, take the right approach. Now if you see what's happening in the macro context, people are building software creation platforms for, you know, indie developers or small entrepreneurs. Like every week there's a new solution. So I think it's been really interesting because I think, as you said, timing makes all the difference.
So you mentioned staying power a couple of times during your answer just there. What would be your advice around, you know, perhaps you've got this amazing idea, this fantastic company, like you said, it is the right solution, just perhaps maybe that timing is wrong. How can you make sure that that staying power is going to work for your business? How do you hold out?
So, you know, I think the thing with staying power is, you know, as an entrepreneur, your number one rule is to be relentless.
Great.
Right? Your number two rule is to have grit. Yeah. Right, or determination or perseverance, like whichever one of those adjectives you want to use. And really, until the time is perfect, whether it's ecosystem timing or market timing, use that opportunity to refine the solution. You know, if I think about our own journey at Builder, when we started, language models weren't the thing. The only language model that was around was BERT, which was the original Google Transformer model. No one was talking about them. It was like not at all the thing it is today. So we had an opportunity to really think about the solution well in advance of being baked into using existing infrastructure and so on and so forth. So I think it's just so important to just keep at it as you build through.
Okay, so that, I guess, resilience really, isn't it?
Yes.
And that belief in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So with that in mind then, one of the key themes of this talk, we want to talk about that staying power, that resilience, but how you deal with the negativity. Because I've got no doubt that every single startup, every company, when they're building up, is met with some negativity. How do you stay focused? How do you stay confident that this is the right idea when you're met with possible negativity along the way?
So I think negativity comes sort of par for the course. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had lots of analogies sort of given to me over time, and I think, you know, one of them is, you know, you have tunnel vision. You know, one of them is, it's probably the funniest one, which is the higher the monkey climbs on the tree, the more of its rear you see. And so I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, mm-hmm. right? And you know, there is no such thing as no naysayer. Mm-hmm. Right? You're going down a route of disrupting, means someone is getting disrupted. Yeah. You're going to go down the route of hiring people or firing people. Not every hire is going to work out. You're going to go down the route of, you know, you're going to make mistakes, difficult decisions, made the wrong decision. Someone will always be unhappy.
Okay.
Right? That's just a foregone conclusion. So if someone is always going to be unhappy, you just got to make sure that you're keeping enough of the people happy as much as you can. But the most important thing, and I say this to everyone, is you need to be able to go to sleep at night.
Okay.
So for as long as you can go to sleep at night peacefully, everything else is just a ripple effect of what you're doing day to day.
Yeah. Okay, so just sort of adding on to that, there's obviously negativity that can come from different areas. We're touching a little bit more on, I guess, peer-to-peer negativity. What if it's coming from either your friends, the people around you who you are closest to, family members, but also what about the wider picture? What if it's coming from, let's say, the media?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're no stranger to bad press. And definitely I'm no stranger to getting bad press. You know, in the beginning, the most important thing as an entrepreneur is to build resilience. Mm-hmm. Now, you could call it thick skin, you can call it resilience, you can call it, you know, staying the course, cementing your leadership, like whatever you want to call it. I think in the end, it goes back to what I said to you, which is you need to be able to go to bed at night. Okay. And what I have realized is things that you say and things that you do will always get misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, communication is just never straightforward. Now, when you're a small company of 5 people, communication is a lot easier.
Yeah.
When you're a company of hundreds of people, you communicate in layers. And then if you have the press and you have customers and you have brand, like, I don't know anyone that's never got bad press.
Okay.
Right. And so I think you have to assume that when the attack comes or when the negative press comes, it's just part and part of the parcel. Okay. Whereas I think in the beginning for me, the biggest problem was I used to take it really personally. I was like, well, but I didn't do this. Or like, oh, but I don't understand. And what I really quickly realized was people will write what they want to write. Yeah. But if you can go to sleep at night knowing you didn't do anything wrong, then you'll find the next morning. And here's the other thing, which I didn't appreciate in the beginning, and you know this is in someone sort of in the journalism world, is that there's a news cycle. It doesn't last forever.
It's true.
And you know what? People will come back a year later, oh, you know, did you see that article a year ago? I'm like, yeah, but did you see the article from 4 years ago? And you have to just manage it.
Yeah, and I think it's such invaluable advice, knowing, it's almost preparing for that negativity in whatever form it might be.
And I think you've hit it on the nail. I think it's not a if it happens.
It's when.
It's a when it happens.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would say we got an unfair amount of it too early.
Okay.
Which meant we had to grow up a lot faster. I don't typically see Series A companies getting it. You know, have we got it more recently? And look, and I think, you know, if you've seen the Blake Lively whole experience, I think it's fair to assume that now things aren't as straightforward with the media as it used to be maybe a decade ago.
I think that is a very good diplomatic way of saying it, but I think that is very possibly true. Okay, let's switch from negativity then and actually talk about the positivity. How then, if you've got someone who's really on board, you've got those people around you who are going, fantastic, this is a great idea, but then suddenly your paths start to maybe differ slightly. How important is it to take in some of that or stick to your own mission? And how do you find that balance?
Look, I think that's tough. And the most important thing as a founder is to stay curious. Okay. But you can't stay curious if you've already got the answer to everything. Mm-hmm. Now, that is also very different to agreeing to everything everyone says. And so I think what you have to do is you have to think of it as a journey. Mm-hmm. And you have to pick up, analyze, think about it, be very dispassionate. And you have to ask yourself the most important question, which is this right for the mission? Mm-hmm. Right? And I give you a very recent example for me. You know, it's a conversation that I've been having with some of the board and others for a while. And I said, look, the reason I carry the Chief Wizard's title is I want to earn the CEO title, yeah. But there is a risk I don't get there fast enough compared to how fast the company gets. Right? And so you take a step back and say, well, what's my mission? Well, my mission is to build a business that allows people to be able to create software, to democratize access, to be able to feel relevant in whatever the world is. I don't have to be the CEO to achieve that mission. And so when you ask yourself the objective question, you lose the emotion. And for me, and it was just sort of, I guess, by design, I never took the title in the beginning because I said, well, if there's a chance I have to give it up, right, it's going to feel really bad. Yeah. But if I never took it, and I'm just handing over some of the work now, or a lot of the work now, well, I keep the same title and do less work, so it's even better.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people agree with that one. I think that's such an interesting way, and actually being able to take that step back and separate yourself, because not everyone can do that, and I think that's actually really difficult when it's your baby, your passion, to be able to go, actually, I'm not the best person for that. So when it comes to bringing in people, what's your advice around the people who perhaps look at this and they might be brilliant at their job, but it's that, you know, it's just a job to them, they're clocking off at 5, 6 o'clock, where you're going, no, we need to keep going, we need to keep doing it. How do you find this balance between finding the right people, the passionate people, the ones that are going to be with you forever, or the ones that are going to clock off?
Look, and I think it's like being a parent. And I have 2 little kids. You send your kids to school,
Yep.
You send them to a tennis teacher. You send them to someone else. You still love your kids. But you're not the one teaching them math. You're not the one teaching them English. You're not the one teaching them how to do a serve. And I think that's important because what you're really saying is, well, there's experts that will do that. And my job is to make sure I'm putting the right experts in the right place to make sure my child goes from diaper to university. And I think a company has a very similar exhibitor behavior. Now, I think your point around clocking out, to me, that's the culture you set. Okay. Now, I would definitely say I'm on the uber other end of that equation. And so, you know, I've definitely had folks say to me, it's pretty taxing to keep up. And I think it's because for me, it's my own child. Yeah. I don't consider it work. And so if I think of something at 2 in the morning, I'll start scribbling at night. There's many times I've woken up and I'm like, oh my God, I had an idea. I need to go to a laptop, or I need to go down, write it down, make notes, or even send an email. And so folks will get an email. And then obviously when you send an email at 2 in the morning, you're also seeing the incoming email, so you reply to a couple of more on your way back to bed. And you know, folks are like, well, but this is like, you can't expect us to reply at 3 in the morning. And I think it's not about an expectation. I think it's, you've just got to recognize and be very clear, this is how I work. And for me, because it's not really work, the balance is a bit more blurry. I think you've got to have the next set of folks around you that share that similar mission. And you know, they don't see the world in terms of this black and white between work and home. And then what you'll have is you'll have shades of gray as you go down, where eventually, you know, to the, I don't know, 400th person, it is 9 to 6. But, you know, if they get inspired in the task that they're doing or the area they're looking at, they might push it. But I think it's wrong to have the expectation that they'll share it as much as you do. Because they don't have the context.
Yeah, and if they're the right person for the job, then actually being able to separate the two must be really important for progress.
It is, and also, look, I think it goes on to another question, and it's something that I've definitely struggled with, is do you hire for loyalty or do you hire for capability? And I would say I've over-indexed for hiring for loyalty and probably not as much indexed for hiring for capability. And over the last couple of years, I've sort of switched that around a bit more. And I think it's really important to find that fine balance. Because capable folks, you will inevitably build trust with, but that trust will happen over time, right? But they'll also ask you difficult questions, which is also not a bad thing. I think there's a balance between that and also having sort of your inner group that you've been in the beginning with, who really understand you. But at some point, those that understand you will be out of their league. And so when's the right time to make that switch? Okay.
Wow, that's tough. That is tough. I can't believe actually we have run out of time. This has gone so quickly. Just to wrap this up, I really want to ask you before I let you go, just really quickly, if you did have sort of maybe a key piece of advice for someone who's at the beginning of their journey, the one thing that perhaps you've learned over the years that is just that piece of advice that would have made all the difference, what would it be?
I think the most important thing for an entrepreneur is to be relentless.
Relentless.
It's not even like try hard or work hard, it's to be relentless. Because you have to break down doors, you have to deal with folks that will say no, you have to deal with rejection. If you're relentless, it sort of imbibes a bunch of things that you need. Confidence, perseverance, dedication, resilience. Relentless covers all of those 4 adjectives.
Brilliant. So that is where we are going to finish.
Yes.
Sachin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For taking the time to talk to us. Please, everyone, join me in a massive round of applause for Sachin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can get up.
Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for that session. And I think we can take resilience as our final piece of advice for the Agora stage today. That's it from us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this journey with us today. I hope you found the sessions as fascinating as I have. Please go out, explore, go to happy hour, get yourself a beer because we all deserve one, let's be honest. I'm going to see you there for some networking. Hope to see you tomorrow as well. So tomorrow, just to remind you, there is the Digital Health and Wellness Summit, which is organized by 4 Years From Now partner ECH Alliance, and the 4 Years From Now Awards will be taking place tomorrow evening. So we hope to see you there as well. Have a fantastic evening and see you tomorrow.